Hello and welcome to the morning after show presented by our friends over at betonline.ag. My name is Joshua Reimer. I'm joined by none other than Jared Block, who is over on my right. And we join you after a weekend of crazy football. I mean, man, what a weekend. I think it has to be the best weekend that I have ever witnessed in my life of playoff football.
Hands down. My voice is trashed after the weekend. Uh, happy I don't have to do any shows today outside of a few other things on my end. But I man, I know that we'll talk about my team, and I'm not even mad anymore.
No.
I don't even think I had time to be mad just because this weekend was so nuts. But man, what every single game had a walk-off win. Every single one.
Yeah, insane. I mean, just every game was down to the wire. Every game was exciting all the way through. I don't think there was any game where I mean, maybe you could say the Rams game was a blowout at one point, but the Bucks storming back was just incredible. Like it was a great weekend of football, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So if you're ready, I'm ready. We can get this thing kicked off.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the game that everyone is talking about this morning. The Chiefs and Bills faced off last night, and it was a spectacle to watch, especially even if you just tuned in for the last 2 minutes of regulation. You had a lot of fun watching that game. Patrick Mahomes had 177 passing yards in those last 2 minutes of regulation. It was absolutely incredible. It was back and forth. You saw Patrick Mahomes with the ability to get down the field with just 13 seconds left on the clock to kick the field goal, send him into overtime. Josh Allen obviously knows that tails always fails, and you see the Chiefs win the coin toss and therefore win the game. What are your thoughts here? Give me your reaction to those last 2 minutes in regulation.
I wish that we had more, and I know I'm
No,
asking for a lot,
all
but
right.
this game basically had everything that you ever would want in it. So I'm so pumped that they were able to get, you know, so many times this season we've been on this show, me specifically, and said, "Game of the year, game of the year, game of the year." Even this game,
No.
in back in September, and it failed every single time. Maybe once it hit, but this one was the game of the year. This one was the Super Bowl. It's going to be hard to replicate anything close to that in terms of excitement. So I don't know. The NFL, while this was their best case scenario, now they got to figure out how they're going to live up to the hype again. Two more weekends. So
No.
you can't really ask for much more. Both quarterbacks were amazing. We basically said for DFS purposes, if you didn't stack this game, you were screwed, and that was right at the end of the day. Maybe you had some exposure to the Rams and Tampa Bay game, but if you didn't have exposure to this game or didn't have overwhelming amount of pieces of it, you were screwed, and that's definitely reflected on at the end of the weekend.
Yeah, definitely reflected at the end of the weekend. I mean, it's pretty insane when you consider that just how high scoring this game was, how many touchdowns Gabe Davis got. I don't know if anyone saw my tweet, but I've said checks dynasty leagues to see if I have any Gabriel Davis shares, and sadly I don't. So it's a sad day for me. But I mean, just an incredible game, and both of these guys. This is the new Brady and Manning rivalry between Allen and Mahomes, right?
Absolutely. You could even say that you can go one step. Well, I don't know. I mean, Manning, I guess, is a good comparison. Yeah, I know you're making the AFC comparison, not the league-wide comparison,
Yeah.
because these two teams are going to be insane. I think that the Bills' window stays open a little bit longer, and we could see, not to look too far forward into the future, but I mean, things look pretty good for the Bills moving forward the next couple seasons. While Kansas City
Well,
kind of has to capitalize on what's going on right now. You have the best. It's pretty easy to say now that Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. So it's
yeah.
not. If Josh Allen wins, then you have a little bit of a competition there. But you just kind of have to base things on. Try not to go too recent, but you have to also just know that we had a weekend where Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady both got knocked out on this in the same weekend. So the tides are turning, teams are shifting, and the quarterbacks of the last decade plus might not be around next year.
Yeah, definitely could see. I know there was a lot of talk before the game yesterday, talking about Brady retiring and him being happy with retiring, even if he did lose in that game. I think that's super interesting. You've already said that you think Rodgers retires, so there's a lot that's going to go on this offseason. This could be one of the most exciting off seasons that we have seen in quite some time. Um, let's talk about Buffalo's defense really quickly because I had this interesting conversation with my friends. We were all on Discord. We were watching the game, kind of talking it through and everything, and we're watching just Mahomes absolutely bully Buffalo. And a couple of my buddies are saying, you can't really blame the defense here. I want to hear your thoughts because I think you can blame the defense in some regard.
Oh, you can 100% blame the defense. There's people talking about overtime rules, and we'll talk about overtime rules because they're stupid.
Yeah,
But this game doesn't go to overtime if the Bills defense shuts things down for 13 seconds. 13
yeah,
seconds. They even gave them, so they gave them. Here's another thing that was weird too. If you noticed, there was that first play, and then the Chiefs called timeout, or whoever called timeout, and they had 7 seconds on the clock, and then they put 8 back on. So that was part of the reason that things changed because that might not give Bucker enough time to kick the field goal. But we can talk about overtime rules and complain about them all we want. Everybody wanted to see Josh Allen strike back again. But at the end of the day, Bills defense was trash on 2 final possessions in the last 30 seconds.
yeah. I mean that defense was just. That's absolutely awful. Like your defense plays like that with 13 seconds left. You just have to shut them down for 13 seconds, and you got to wonder Leslie Frazier, someone who was looked at as a front runner for a few jobs around the league. I know Chicago Bears were interested in him. He's the DC for the Bills. For those who don't know, like, did this end up costing Leslie Frazier a head coaching job? Because I'm looking at this as an organization, and I'm thinking, wow, I don't want that guy as my head coach. That's for sure.
Uh, well, yeah. I mean, might even cost him his own job, even though the
Yeah,
Bills defense. They say okay. So here's my other thing with that too, and I know this isn't Frazier's fault, but like the one of the biggest plays of the game to me, regardless of all the scoring, was that Chiefs timeout or not Chiefs timeout. It was the punt that both teams got called for a penalty, and Andy Reid elects to kick it again. As the punter, you see Tyreek Hill out there. He is not the punt returner this year. Don't you think that rings a bell a little bit? Like, hey,
no.
if 10's down there, you kick it to him once, doesn't do well. Why in the world would you ever kick it to him again? Just kick the ball out of bounds, man. Like that was honestly that is the play of the game for me.
Yeah, just kind of insane all around. Like everything that played out, you don't usually see games like that happen, but we certainly saw it. And man, it was a great game for sure. Any other comments on this game? Like where, like obviously, I think you'd probably go look at Bet Online and see that the Chiefs are favorites to win the Super Bowl now. Is this kind of a situation where this was going to be top game of the year, and we're just going to have to suffer through another 2 weekends?
Well, I do think that the AFC and NFC championships are great. I just don't know how good the Super Bowl product's going to be. So that's my whole thing. I mean, you do have a scenario where the Chiefs and Niners could face off for a rematch of
I don't
sorts.
want it. I don't
I know,
want
I know,
it.
but but you do also have this Bengals team who, if for those who remember, that's only 2 weeks ago that the Bengals or 3 weeks ago when the Bengals just shocked the Chiefs, and that game was in Cincinnati. So I think that you know I don't know. Right now the Chiefs are clear touchdown favorites, and the Rams are getting a field goal and a half. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to live up to the hype that was this past weekend. So in that regard, I would say it's going to be almost impossible to redo that. But I think we still have some really 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 good matchups in store.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I think the NFC Conference Championship and AFC Conference Championships are both going to be good times. And we're going to preview the odds for both of those games after we get done talking about the other 3 games that went on this weekend. But there were 3 other games that went on this weekend. Let's talk about the other game that happened yesterday with the Rams facing off against the Bucks. Big storylines coming into it. a lot of chatter about Brady being fine with retirement or potentially considering retirement after this season. A lot of talk of Tristan Wirfs not being there for their right tackle position. A lot of conversation about how their center did have an injury, but seemed like he was going to play regardless. It seemed like it was setting up to be a really good game, and then the Rams kind of just took over for 3 quarters, and then things got close again. So through those 3 quarters, did you think there was any chance that the Bucks could come back there?
Oh yeah, why would we ever count this out?
Yeah.
I mean, they kept saying repeatedly this was the who's call oh Michaels and Collinsworth were calling this game. That's right. And
Mm.
Collinsworth goes, he says the thing at halftime. He's like, "Yep, got to give him the 28-3 halftime speech," and that
Yep.
might have worked a little bit. But the Rams made mistake after mistake, and the Bucks defense got not that they're not talented because they are, but they got really lucky on like what the 4 fumbles.
Hmm.
So and some really crucial things like the center not communicating with Stafford, and throwing the ball over his head to force a turnover, just random things that, and then the Mike Evans blown coverage play. It just thing after thing for the Rams, and that's why I think they are the least likely to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The end of the day, if they don't clean up those mistakes, like it's just, I can already tell you, the Niners are going to take advantage of those mistakes even more so than the Bucks were able to, and it's going to be a really interesting NFC Championship game. But tell me what you think about this. Is it Tom Brady's last game? Like I said, a ton of chatter before the game. A lot of ESPN people talking about how it seemed like he was going to consider it. Take a long time to consider it. It wasn't just going to be the usual type of consideration. There's real serious potential that Tom Brady could end up retiring after this season.
I don't really know if I have an actual take on this, but I will say that it would be very weird for Brady to go out like that. That's just me. But I
Is there
know
any way that he wins another Super Bowl? I don't think there
uh,
is.
I think that they had a really good, like they had good optimistic vibes around like week 12, which I would have agreed because you still had all of your guys, and without Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and then like missing 3 other guys after that. It certainly makes things a little bit tough. Their defense had all 11. Like this is a team that came back with all 22 starters from the Super Bowl the year before. So things did not turn out for them. Last year they ran healthy as well, and this year they didn't. And that is the difference a lot of times with repeating championship teams
Yep.
not getting ready. You saw exactly like your Niners are a very good example of this. While you've lost a lot of players, not as much as last year, and that's a big
Yeah,
difference. So.
seriously.
Um, it's all about staying healthy, and the Bucks did not do that. And I think that if they were healthy with Godwin and AB and Leonard Fournette's 100%, like Fournette had a fantastic game, and he was like 75% good. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that things are a little bit different. Wirf's injury was massive. He was arguably their best offensive lineman going up against the best. Well, I don't know. I won't. I think it's. I think you can say that they have the best names remaining between any of the playoff defensive lines left. I don't know if they're the most talented, but they certainly are
It's
the
the
bigger team.
Niners.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, the Chiefs looked pretty damn good last night too
That is
on
true.
the D
They
line.
did.
So for me though, it's like I again I don't know if Brady goes out like that. He said he's always been planning this 45th year, which would be this next year. But maybe he takes a step back and says, you know what, I'm good. Maybe I don't have to prove anything else. I got everything that I ever wanted. I own everything, and
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I think you could also make a case of two things. One thing was that I heard as a rumor that they have failed, or not failed. They chose specifically to not air the last episode of whatever his show is, in order to say at the very end of that, apparently he's supposed to say that he's retiring at the end of the documentary.
Interesting.
Um, I don't know if that's true. It's just speculation. The
Yeah.
other thing is that he, at the first time in his whole career, got a unsportsmanlike penalty because of getting
Yeah.
hit in the face under the helmet. And you saw that he finally didn't get his way for once. Maybe he's
Yeah.
like, maybe I don't have it in me anymore. Maybe I
Yeah.
can't talk my way through in this anymore.
Yeah. It's a really interesting case. I don't know. My prediction is that you probably see him done. I think there's some things that he just announced the Brady brand clothing line. He has plenty of things that I think he wants to do personally. I mean, obviously his kids are growing up. Like I know some player was talking about it on NFL Live yesterday, but it I just think it's going to be done. Like I think at the end of the day, he's going to see what Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes just did and think like, hey, am I really going to be able to compete with that if I make it to another Super Bowl? Because I think if he faced either one of those guys, I know his team did well last year, but their defense would have got eviscerated by either one of Allen
Oh
or
yeah,
Mahomes. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
both of those guys would have thrown up 400 yards. If Stafford was able to throw up 300 yards through an extremely mistake-prone day, either one of Allen or Mahomes would have thrown up 400 yards on the Bucks, and it would have been, I think it would have been a blowout of a Super Bowl.
I agree. Also, we didn't talk about the man that Josh Allen was yesterday. He literally carried that team. Yes,
Yep.
I know Gabe Davis. We'll talk about Gabe in a second too, but I said when the fourth quarter started, they've got the ball back within 7 minutes, and I said in the Discord, you can look back that Josh Allen's about to go nuclear, and he did.
No.
And he literally, you saw all the designed runs, you saw everything that he had to do to make sure that he gave his team the best chance, and they had it. They literally had it, and the defense, all they had to do was let. We didn't talk about the fact that they sailed that kick into the end zone too.
Hmm.
After that touchdown, they could have
Yep.
easily ran a few seconds off the clock by making sure it was in play. But yeah, no, I mean, crucial mistakes on the defense and off and special teams for Buffalo. Offense looks incredible. And Josh Allen continues to prove like they are going, and this is another reason that I don't think Brady or Rodgers can do it again, is because these quarterbacks are just on a different level. They're different humans. They grew up in this new style of play where
Yep.
they were both running and passing quarterbacks. And while those two had their time, Rodgers more so than Brady as far as scrambling and maneuvering in the pocket. It's not that game anymore. And you can have all the IQs up here, but you might like lose the athletic ability like they have. And Josh Allen, he's not going to be able to do it for his whole career. We're going to see a drop off eventually on that, but it's really fun. It's amazing to watch him do his thing. And he has possibly some of the coldest, like between him and Mahomes, man, the coldest veins in the league for sure. Like
No.
they don't even see time at all. They just do it.
No.
Speaking of, and then we'll move on. But I wanted to say the Gabe Davis thing. First of all, I rostered him last night everywhere, and I'm giving away a jersey at the end of this stream. Go retweet my tweet at Jared R. Block on Twitter. You get to scroll down probably a little bit because I was going nuts last night, but it's there. Just look at the Gabriel Davis touchdown play and you retweet that. I think it's got like 115 retweets on it. So go find that if you want a chance to win a Gabriel Davis jersey, because I'm buying one myself too today, actually.
Very
Um,
nice.
anyway, I was talking to my friend during the game last night. We were, the Bills were our team now that the Packers are done,
Yep.
and because it's I don't know, Packers and Buffalo, Green Bay and Buffalo, very very similar as far as like teams to root for, underdog type stuff, uh, in the snow and all that kind of thing. So I told him he was like, "What's going on with Steph Diggs? Why does he only have 3 receptions for 7 yards?" And I specifically just said, I think by the end of next season that Gabriel Davis is the wide receiver one in Buffalo.
No way. You're on
And
crack,
then
Karen.
and then he went and did that. So
I understand he did that. You're still on crack. Steph Diggs will be this team's number one wide receiver.
so
Uh,
how do you get 3 balls for 7 yards in a championship game?
because you're focused on. Because the other team focuses their coverage on you.
They have
Why do you
they have
think Gabe
seven
Davis is so
receivers.
fucking open all the time?
They have 7 receivers they can throw the ball to.
Still, I don't believe that Gabe Davis will be a wide receiver one. Maybe Gabe Davis is a wide receiver two. Steph Diggs will always be this team's wide receiver one, at
All
least for
right,
the
well
next three
then
seasons.
maybe Gabe goes somewhere else and be the wide receiver one.
Do you want to get a friendly wager here and like say who has the more receiving yards at the end of next season? Because I'm totally down to do that. I 100% will take Diggs, right? Unless there's an injury that makes things different. But like, I bet that Stephon Diggs will have at least 200 plus more receiving yards than Gabriel Davis will next year.
Hmm.
We'll have to
Sure,
talk
why
about
not?
this off the air, or maybe I'll put a pin in it and we'll talk about it at the beginning of next season because I don't believe that. I understand Gabe Davis did some amazing things last night, but it's just the way that their offense works. I mean, we saw Dawson Knox do some amazing things the last times they played the Chiefs. It's just they have so many weapons at the end of the day. I don't think Gabe Davis is going to be wide receiver one.
Okay, fair enough. I know that Diggs is going to be there for a while. Don't
Yeah.
know how long Gabe's going to be there. Emmanuel Sanders is a complete zombie. He won't be in the league after the middle of next year. Cole Beasley's got a contract year. And yeah, I mean, okay, so the one thing that we did also say is that Dawson Knox takes the step to be a top 5 tight end next year. So that might impact things a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Man, give me that list real quick. I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm thinking of it. Kelsey's still number one. Kittle's up there in the top five. Mark Andrews is up there in the top five. Dawson
Mm.
Knox and Darren Waller. Think that's a solid top five list.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if Tom Brady's not there, then Gronk's not. Gronk doesn't even have to play anymore.
Yeah, Gronk. I mean, Gronk's probably retiring when Tom retires. So, uh, I mean, I even if Tom's still good to go next season, I still don't know if Gronk makes that top five list. Maybe he makes it over Waller at the end of the day, but we'd have to see. All right, we talked about this enough. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Saturday games because it really sucks that the Saturday games got overshadowed by two amazing games on Sunday, but they did completely get overshadowed. Let's
Yep.
talk about our game. We were live for this game on this channel. We're supposed to be watching UFC 270. It just turned into a Packers versus 49ers watch along stream instead, at least for a good portion of the stream. And Packers special teams, man. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, right? You have a blocked field goal in at the end of the second quarter. You have a blocked punt that essentially gave the Niners their only touchdown and won them the game. And then you have, I think, just what caps it all off is that at the end of the game, to block the field goal that's going to lose you your season, you only have 10 guys on the field. Like, that's that.
Yep.
It's just, it's an atrocious way to end your season when it comes to that special teams.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if if they haven't already fired their special teams coordinator that he's done by the end of the day.
No.
There's no reason that you should be even back in the office talking about next year.
Yeah.
You're just done. Yeah, that was easily the worst part of the performance from the Packers. But I will say, and maybe this won't get enough, maybe it will. I haven't watched a single second of Packers media because there's no point because we've it's been the same excuse year after year, and most of the time it is because of special teams. So now we'll see what happens. Like honestly, I don't care about the Rodgers stuff anymore because I was right this year when everybody thought that he was going to be gone. So
No.
I could care. Like he's done enough in my lifetime for me to ever, Packers or fans are spoiled. At the end of the day, we just are. So what I will say with all of that being said is that in a game where your defense didn't give up a single touchdown to the actual offense and held the team to 13 points in a playoff game against the same team that ran over you for like 300 rushing yards 2 seasons ago to end your season. Like you knew that was the game plan all along, and you only gave up 6 actual points to the offense. And you get all these guys back on defense. You have most of your offensive pieces healthy outside of AJ Dillon going down. The one guy who doesn't show up in the entire game is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
20 for 29, 225 yards, nothing.
Worst QBR in his playoff life ever is
Yep.
the QBR he had this past Saturday. I think that's we can blame special teams all we want, and I know a lot of the media will focus on the special teams because there's three plays that you can look at that are quantifiable and that you can look at and say, hey, the Packers did really bad jobs on these three plays, being the blocked field goal, the blocked punt, and the 10-man situation at the end of the game. But at the end of the day, you got to look at you had your full offensive line coming back. Rodgers should have been protected, and he was rushed or hurried or pressured on 53% of his pass attempts. And this 49ers defense showed why they're one of the best defenses in the league right now. And Rodgers not showing up is I don't know, man. Like this is at home. This is in Lambeau. Like maybe it's a different situation if it's somewhere else, but you have your home crowd behind you, and you have that low of a QBR. I don't know. I blame it just as much on Rodgers as I do on the special teams unit as well.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about this much either, but the fact that Aaron Jones didn't score on that wheel route also amazes me to this day. I don't know what
Yeah,
happened there. I don't know if he stuttered. I don't know if they just had a good angle on him, but that blew my mind as we were streaming. Or wait, no, that was before we started
was before.
streaming. Even
Yep.
though I was still was like trying to understand how that didn't end up in a score because that was then the blocked field goal right after that. So
Yep.
it's kind of strange though too because we didn't get to talk about this part, but the Packers had their best drive of I don't know the last 2 months in the first drive of the game, and they
Yeah.
ended up with the score, and it just seemed too easy. And everybody was looking at me. All my friends were like, "This one's over, right?" And like, no,
No,
but
not even close.
it looked really good early on.
Yeah.
And they just did nothing after.
Yeah, I mean, like I saw a lot of tweets on Twitter just saying that like looks like the Ram or not the Rams, looks like the Packers are just going to have their way with this 49ers defense, but 49ers definitely changed some things up and it was really good. Uh we're not going to preview that game quite yet. We'll still talk about the Joe Burrow game. But just one last question for you. Jimmy G has now won two games, two playoff games where he was the underdog. I know, yes, he did not win that team the game. Obviously, like he was not the factor in winning. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest stat for a quarterback is their wins, and you
Sure.
see a lot of the media talk about that. Like, what is the percentage of likelihood that now we're maybe seeing the fact that Jimmy G could stay on board as the 49ers starting quarterback?
That's my question to you every week, and you
I
say he's
know,
gonna.
man, and I
Now
keep
he's won.
saying no, but now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, how can you not? Like, if you're, especially if you win this NFC Championship game, I mean, it's a real conversation. I keep saying it's not a real conversation. I feel like it is. I don't know. I keep thinking of potential trade options for Trey Lance. It would kind of suck to have him go when we know he is a good talent, but at the end of the day, if Jimmy G keeps winning, like I said, the most important quarterback stat is winning right now and the wins that they have. And getting to the NFC Championship is no joke.
How many? Oh man, there's so many. Uh, because okay, so I'm very conflicted on this because you're right. Wins define a QB success, and how many games has like there was a period of time where Tom Brady's defense carried him too. You can
Yeah.
count that as I mean he was otherworldly last year, so that's not fair to apply there. But there's definitely a time during his New England days where that defense did carry him through some games. Now, when you're talking about Jimmy G, this the identity of the football team is running the ball and defense. So if the QB at least limits his mistakes, which he did have one in there, didn't really have to throw at all, but he is the epitome of game manager. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, saw Sean tweet something during the second half and said if Trey Lance is in, they win the football game. It's not true.
I couldn't
I
have
don't think.
disagreed more. I mean,
Yeah.
he came in and talked to us before we went live for After Dark, and he said, "Man, the Niners need to put in Trey Lance." No, they don't. Jimmy G's gonna win you that game more than Trey Lance will. Almost 9 times out of 10, I believe in that. Um,
Oh, you're in a specific, interesting, kind of hard spot to be in as an organization where you're doing great and you're gonna whatever move you make, people are not gonna like it. So
yeah,
if Jimmy G, let's say that they move on, let's say that they go to the Super Bowl, regardless of the outcome, I think that's as high as you can get to selling him to get what you want.
yeah,
On the flip side of that, if you go to Trey Lance for next year, there's going to be all this hype about how far your team got. And I just don't think that he's ready yet. So I don't
really.
know what you do. I don't
I
know what
think
you
a
do.
full year behind Jimmy. I think him getting that experience during the few games that Jimmy was out, the Cardinals game, and I know there was a couple of the Texans game as well at the end of the season. He's got the starts. He's gotten looks at this offense. He's gotten to sit behind Shanahan and just kind of learn the playbook the whole entire year. I think he is ready. Now, on the other side, I think with Houston saying that that number three pick is open, you could very easily see a trade created there where the Texans get Trey Lance, the Niners get
Yeah,
that
there
number
you
three
go.
pick, and you potentially get another key piece on offense or defense. Maybe a Brandon Cooks who doesn't really want to be there right now. Like, you can really talk about a big trade coming in for Trey Lance. Just as well as I said, I think you can see a big trade coming in for Jimmy G. I think at the end of the day, you'll see a first round pick given to this Niners team for one of these two QBs this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this game by game because it feels like it is a game by game decision, but we should step back and look at this because the organization's looking at this year over year, and that would be what was it? Was it 3 years ago or 2 years ago?
What?
2 seasons ago,
Two
the
years
Niners made
ago.
it.
It was in 2019.
Okay, so you've been in two out of the last three NFC Championship games
Yeah.
with Jimmy G at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
How do you let him go?
Yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think you can reasonably say, especially because I know this team started out 3-5, but you talk about the second half run they've been on. They are now 9-2 over their last 11 games. And all most of that time was led by Jimmy G. And he makes his mistakes, but it's a really interesting conversation. It's a conversation that really doesn't need to be had because, like you said, it is a really game by game analysis here. We won't really know until we get to next week and into the Super Bowl conversation as well. But let's talk about the other game that happened on Saturday. This one gets completely overlooked now because of all the thrillers that we had yesterday and with the thrill that we had with the Packers. But this Bengals and Titans game was phenomenal. And I know I have a lot of people who are really upset because in my neighborhood, I wore my 49ers jersey yesterday outside, and I got a lot of dirty looks, I'm pretty sure. So Titans end up losing. We call them a fraudulent one seed. I decided to still try to back them. Clearly, they didn't deserve it. Ryan Tannehill, 3 picks, tons of mistakes made. Joe Burrow didn't have the best passing day ever, but it was good enough to get the win, right?
It was, and this Bengals team continues to surprise me. I did not think that Derrick Henry was good enough to go, but that he proved me wrong. What, 5 screws and a plate in his foot? Crazy.
Yeah,
Anyway, like he's literally going to be a cyborg by the end of his career.
seriously.
So while like for me, always Tennessee is a team that if they get down, they cannot compete. They want to control the ball and do their own thing, and that was kind of a kind of who I thought the Niners were. But I think that over the last couple of games, that has definitely turned it a little bit
Yep.
on its head. So the Titans, they like to play their game of football. The worry for me always has been if they get down early in games, they just don't have the firepower to get back. And I know that they missed Jones, they missed Henry, they missed Brown. But when AJ Brown's playing, they were 11-2 this year. And he was in, he was dominant, he had an awesome game. He had a huge touchdown, one-handed catch that blew my mind. And everybody was going to forget about this game because of the remaining three. But the Bengals had control of this game from the start. And it was a little bit of a fourth quarter comeback there or third quarter comeback mostly for the Titans. But the Bengals defense is the MVP of this game for sure, 100%.
You saw that this Bengals defense went out last offseason and they said, we're not only going to go get guys that are good for this defense, we're going to go get guys that are proven winners as well. Guys who are in winning situations before. That way, so we can build that culture for our defense. I mean, it's playing out in real time in front of us. I know a lot of people have completely forgotten about that quote that the Bengals GM had, but like it's completely playing out in front of us, and you're seeing this defense step up in every which way, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, I know Derrick Henry didn't have an impressive day. I think he had 20 rushing attempts for 60 some odd yards and had a touchdown, but uh, he didn't have an unimpressive day yards per carry wise because of being injured. He had an unimpressive day because that run defense was locked down. And I just go back to this play where Titans need 1 yard to get the first down. Probably this yard gives them the game because they'll be able to kick a field goal. And you see this run defense be absolutely dominant in not only stopping a Tannehill rush, but also stopping a Derrick Henry rush on 4th and 1.
I agree. The defense showed up, and that was a defense that in the previous week against the Raiders, they lost like 3 D tackles in one half. And Hendrickson wasn't 100%. He got cleared late, so he wasn't as good to go. This team just stepped up.
Yep.
And the one thing that they will need that they, unfortunately, that's why I don't think that they compete much between any of these four teams. they'll give him a puncher's chance on offense, but as far as the offensive line goes, easily the worst offensive line still remaining, and they will have to address that. So going back to the drafts, you have the option of drafting Jamar Chase, who, by the way, he got over 100 yards, but he was not as dominant as I thought he might have been. Um, they spread the ball out pretty well, which again was why one of the reasons why they won the game. But their offensive line, terrible, giving up 9 sacks. If you're the GM, do you redo this in your head and say Jamar Chase, offensive lineman, Jamar Chase, offensive lineman? Because like now they're gonna have this back of the first round type of pick, and I don't know if they're gonna get to who they want to get. So,
No.
do you regret doing this? I don't think so because of the quarterback to wide receiver relationship and the year that he's had. Offensive rookie of the year, or at least he should be. So I don't know. Give me your thoughts on that.
I think at the end of the day, no. I think you truly have a. I'm not going to call him a generational talent. I'm not sure I'm willing to put him up on that pedestal quite yet, but a truly special talent in Jamar Chase. And I think there's a very well likelihood that if Jamar Chase wasn't here, you see T. Higgins have just an incredible season as well, and you see the rest of these wide receivers step up a little bit because they have a. I mean, like even if they didn't have Jamar Chase, the wide receivers around Joe Burrow would have been T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Auden Tate. And I know people don't give Auden Tate the respect he deserves, but he's a solid wide receiver 3 on your team. But I think all of the hype that you generated around the Jamar Chase thing, I think all of the jerseys you're going to sell around Jamar Chase, I think the connection that you have with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase for the next 3 years, it's going to be phenomenal. So I think at the end of the day, you made the right choice with Jamar Chase.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I still think that they don't get to where they are if not for the Jamar Chase blow up game against the Chiefs to get them to this spot. So, yeah, I mean, I think that those two have an extreme. They're going to have this connection for many many years, given that they stay together. Which I think that the organization will probably sell off every single piece of the team before they let one of those guys go.
No,
So, Shibby, thank you for the follow. Christopher Fed subs at tier 1. Thank you, sir. Crazy. You guys are
appreciate
nuts.
it.
We're
Appreciate it
hanging
a
out
lot,
all
guys.
weekend and then now today.
Yeah.
Man, we can't say enough for how good football was this weekend. People will forget about how good Saturday was.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't think anybody forgets about what the Chiefs and Bills did last night.
No, I think that's a game that you kind of remember where you were when that game played out because that's how special that game was. It truly was phenomenal. Now we've talked about we recapped all the games for the weekend. Let's go over to Bet Online, our good friends over there at Bet Online, and let's talk about these odds that we're gonna have for the championship games.
Yep, just for future reference, Chiefs favorites to win the Super Bowl plus 130, the Rams plus 210, Niners plus 400, and the Bengals plus 800. Right now, the early spread gives the AFC 2.5 points. So I think that shifts a little bit if the Bengals were to manage to win. But right now, they're kind of expecting the Chiefs to come in and take this one. BetOnline currently has the AFC Championship odds set at Kansas City -7. The total is 54.5. This game's in Kansas City in January. I don't think this matters. Bengals are a cold weather team. They practice outside for what it's worth as well. Bengals only team in the league that has an does not have an indoor practice facility. Maybe they'll actually get one now with all the money they've made in the playoffs this year.
Seriously.
So the Niners come in against the Rams as the underdog, and we've seen this before. It should be no surprise. They have been underdogs pretty much since November. The Rams are -3.5 at home. The total sits at 46.5 with a slight lean toward the under. So I think that if any team was going to show up again on the road, it would be the Niners in this spot. They travel well. It's not a far travel in the first place. And for those who forget, the Niners are the most popular team in the state. So
Yeah.
I think that they will find a way to get their I don't know, just have a better crowd reaction. So
It kind of
if
amazes me the fact that so I'm assuming you saw the graphic that the Rams put out saying that they're only going to
yeah,
sell tickets to the greater Los Angeles area. What
But
a what a I
that's all
mean
Niners fans
that's all,
and some
exactly. That's what I was telling
and some
someone in the
Raiders
chat.
fans.
I was
Yeah.
telling Flash that in the chat. It was like little do they know, everyone in LA is a Niners fan. Like that's where the Niners fan base is, just as much as it's in the Bay and everywhere else in California. Just because California is Niners territory, so I think it's going to completely backfire on them, especially if you see Niners show up like they did in Week 18. You're going to see everyone look back at that little graphic that they had and think, man, how stupid were the Rams?
Yeah, so here's another thing, and then we can move on to talk about sports that people still care about. Sorry. um, Niners have beaten the Rams twice this year,
Yeah.
both on the road and at home. And, the first one was just a trouncing. The second one was definitely insane as well. I know it's almost impossible to beat a team three times. How do you think that they get it done? Because it's very unrealistic, but they do have a shot to make it happen.
Niners? Did you say it was unrealistic for the Niners to win? I don't think it's
To beat a
unreal.
team to beat a team three times in the same season.
Yeah, I understand that. I still think the Niners have an edge up here. I think that at the end of the day, the defense is better for the Niners. I know that Rams defense is elite, but I still believe in, while you said the Rams have the better names, I still think the Niners have the best defensive line when it's all said and done. And I think at the end of the day, this offense does make mistakes, right? But you don't see them make nearly as many mistakes as the Rams do. I I don't know, man. I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who makes more mistakes. Is it going to be Jimmy G or is it going to be Stafford? And I lean with Jimmy G because he's had experience here. I think experience is everything. I think that for most of these playoff things, and Stafford just doesn't have the experience in this situation.
Well, I mean, if you look at the two quarterbacks, Jimmy G has the better playoff record.
Yeah, much better
So
playoff record too, dude. I think he's like 5-1 in the last 2 years in the playoffs. So I mean, Jimmy G's playoff record has been amazing, and this is going to be a fun game. I think this is the more exciting game out of the two. I think you could potentially see the Chiefs get into a blowout scenario, but I think this game stays close all the way around, and it's going to be a good one.
I agree. If there's any game that does stay close, I'm not going to count out the Bengals, but I do
No,
think that the Niners have a better shot to win than the Bengals do.
I would tend to agree. Let's talk about this Bengals game really quickly. Chiefs 7 point favorites here, over under 54.5. Big over under. Chiefs big favorites. Do you think this number gets bigger? I could see it getting bigger. I could also see the conversation for a lot of people betting on the Bengals in the next few days and at that +7 line.
I think the Bengals +7 is going to be the most popular bet, if not the Niners +3.5.
Yeah,
But if you're betting Niners +3.5, why not just bet money line
money line.
at that point?
Yeah,
I do expect that this could get down to 6. Uh, but at the end of the day, if the Bengals if a lot of people in the public are on the Bengals +6.5, +6, then I'd see a lot of sharps coming in at Kansas City with a touchdown at home. Seems a little bit too good to be true at the moment for the Bengals.
yeah. I think the Bengals are riding high on the win they had against the Titans, but like we said, Titans were fraudulent. Bengals played the Raiders, and at the end of the day, the Chiefs beat the second best team in the league in the Bills, in my opinion. So, um, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting weekend of playoffs. We have surprisingly the Niners and Rams game is the later one. Did that surprise you? The fact that they got the late game and the Chiefs
A
got
little
the
bit,
early game. I guess
a
it's
little bit.
also. I guess they also take into account like West Coast, East Coast, and it makes more sense to make the
Sure.
West Coast game later. But still,
Yeah,
it still shocked me.
yeah, it would have been what, like, if this game was at 2 Central, it would have been a noon game. That doesn't
Yeah,
really scream NFC Championship to me, but
no, it doesn't.
um, anyway, I thought when we went to bed last night, or when the game was over, I was like, oh, it's only like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I still got like 5 hours left of my day,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be. I'm a little bit surprised, I guess, but again, it's all about TV and control of money and stuff like that. So.
You still would have thought
Uh,
one of these games would be like an actual night game, though, right? Like both of these games are going to be day games where they're at because you have a West Coast game.
well,
That game's going to be at 3:30, and the Chiefs game is going to be a day game too. So I don't know. I think it was a little shocking.
it's kind of strange, but like the NFL controls everything else in the world in America.
Yeah.
So People will come out to watch these. Do you think that there's going to be? I think personally, maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I get proved wrong. But how do you keep up with the TV numbers from Bills Chiefs?
I didn't even
Like,
see
I
what
don't
the
think
TV numbers were
I
at.
don't, I don't know, but I'm just speculating that they're not going to be anywhere close next weekend.
Yeah, I would tend to agree
People will
probably.
watch. People will watch, but I feel like the brain is trained to think that Bills Chiefs is better.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't think they're going to have those TV numbers out for a while, but I'd be really curious to see like how viewed was that game in comparison to other games. How viewed is that game compared to like I don't know. Probably the Super Bowl has more viewership just because it's the Super Bowl, but uh, it's going to be interesting to compare what that Bills and Chiefs game was like compared to these two championship games. All right, anything else from the NFL? If not, we have to talk about some other sports that, like you said, people still do care about the UFC and NBA.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, guys, thank you for hanging out. Just want to give a little bit of housekeeping so we don't forget. I am giving away that Gabriel Davis jersey here in the next 10 minutes. We're also still catching up from Saturday night's stream to get all the prizes taken care of. So
No.
those will all be done today. So um, if you haven't received that yet, that's why. So let's go on. Let's talk about the UFC 270 recap, the reason that we even did the stream in the first place, and talk about how, because people are gonna forget about that too. And I know that
No.
like not everybody is a UFC fan, but we saw some amazing title fights.
Yeah, man, two really good title fights. Let's start out with the one that everyone was watching that, maybe people will say disappointed. I thought it was a good showing. Ngannou, outguns gone. I think this is a perfect headline for this segment. Ngannou ends up getting to the wrestling and surprisingly wins his first fight that comes after the third round. And this one goes all the way to see Ngannou crowned the heavyweight champion. He unifies the belt. And now things are kind of up in the air. Is the UFC going to pay him? Do we see a potential John Jones matchup in the future? Especially knowing that Ngannou did this. I don't know if you saw this, but doctors said that he shouldn't be fighting at UFC 270 because he came into this fight with a torn ACL and a torn MCL and still put on this performance. I
How long ago?
it was during training camp at some point.
Okay, okay,
I mean, like
okay.
that. I think it was a torn ACL. I know at least it was a torn MCL. And it was like I don't know. Let me look this up. But uh, it's absolutely insane knowing that he did this with the injury as well.
All right.
Yes,
Well,
he
there.
said
That's
that
that.
doctors warned him of potential irreversible damage because of these two injuries. Um, He had he said I have a grade 3 MCL tear, which is the worst grade that you can get for an MCL tear, and I have damage on my ACL and damage on my MPFL as well. So like I was personally wondering why he had the knee wraps on. That would explain why he had the knee wraps on. It's because he had the injury coming in.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know if we didn't see this either because we were on stream during this and it got deleted before the night was done. But John Jones did tweet on Saturday night. He said, and I quote, "At the end of the day, I'm fucking them both up." That was the tweet.
Yeah.
And then he deleted it like an hour later. Um, Apparently, from a recent interview, Jones is expected to return in the second quarter of 2022, and he wants to face whoever won this fight.
I think that's a quick turnaround if you're considering the second quarter. I think that he probably wouldn't get the fight. He probably needs a lead up fight to get there. I don't know if you've seen John Jones at like 240 yet, but dude looks like an animal. I mean, it looks truly insane how because I mean we've always known him at 205, but at this heavyweight division, he kind of looks incredible. So I know early lines have John Jones as a plus 180 underdog. Um, I don't know, man. It's very interesting. I don't know what that matchup would look like. I'm sure it would be one of those really big money fights that they play out in Las Vegas, but it would definitely be a good time.
It would be insane. Like we would obviously be streaming that fight, but it's tough because I feel like it doesn't really even matter. Like like he's not just sitting at home the last several years doing nothing, right?
No.
I think I think that he's probably better off than a lot of the fighters are outside of just the actual combat experience. Uh, but you would think that he has a leg up because he hasn't been taking the hits over the last couple of years. Bacon
No.
says that's the fight that you have to take us to.
I don't think so. I don't think that's in the cards. Most likely, especially with that how much that fight is going to be costing the normal person. But yeah, heavyweight division kind of in limbo now. Do how who knows how long Ngannou's going to take to recover from that MCL tear and that ACL damage. And it's going to be interesting, man. We're going to have to wait and see. Let's talk about the flyweight division because before this heavyweight bout, before the championship bout, we got a chance to find out who was going to be the holder of the flyweight belt. A lot of people leaning with Brandon Moreno, but we see Figgy able to reclaim the title against Brandon Moreno. Absolutely phenomenal performance from both of these guys. I know we were both on the edge of our seat all the way through, even through them reading the decision. We were both on the edge of our seat, but Figgy ends up getting a 48-47 unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'm. Whenever I think of, I asked you on stream if Brandon Moreno's face is just like that, and it will forever be like that. Um, Man, what a fight! I mean, they don't have to settle this anymore, do they? Like they don't have to go another fight, or do you think that
No,
they will?
Nope, you don't have to go another one. Figgy's won 2 out of 3. I don't think you go to a fourth and fifth. I think those types of things are kind of reserved for really, really special fights, and I think you will see. I don't know. There's a lot of potential. We talked a little bit about this on stream. Like, what is the next step for the flyweight division? Because everyone knows who Figueiredo is. Everyone knows who Brandon Moreno is. When it comes to people outside of the UFC crowd, not a lot of people know the rest of the flyweights. Flyweights isn't a very well marketed division by the UFC. So Askar Askarov is there. Brandon Royval is the guy who's there. There's potential options, but the usual non UFC fan wouldn't know these names.
Right, and I mean, I don't even know if Moreno's necessarily a household name either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are if you're into the sport at all
Hmm.
and have watched the last year or so. Because he did fall off and then had this monster comeback of a year last year. And yeah, I mean, people know who Figueredo is, or they at least know what he looks like.
No.
And that's kind of like where things start from a UFC perspective when you're getting into the sport. Like coming from me, I wasn't into anything until the pandemic last year. So
Hmm.
I would watch the McGregor fights, I would watch John Jones, and then I wouldn't care otherwise. So
No.
the best thing to happen to the sport still, we've already said this a bunch, but the last 2 years has
No.
been like the reason that people are into the UFC more than ever.
UFC essentially won the pandemic out of every single sport. I mean, they did the best job with just getting out there, putting on performances, and getting things in front of the viewers' eyes. Their partnership with ESPN too has really helped that as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the future of that division. We do know the future of the light heavyweight division is going to be decided later on in March. I think it's March. I don't know the exact date of this one, but Tex Herrera facing off against Yuri Prochaska. This is going to decide the light heavyweight belt. This is going to be Glover's first chance at defending that belt. Um, Glover is kind of in a position. We all kind of feel like everyone has already anointed Yuri Prochaska as a guy who should win the belt, and I'm curious to see odds because I bet he's a big
Yep.
favorite coming into this one.
So I believe that this is one of the. It should be the main event. Maybe it's the co-main, but it is May 7th
Okay.
of this year. UFC 274, the only fight that has been announced for this card. Right now, Prochaska is minus 185 and Glover is plus 160. So I think this is. I mean, for to be completely honest, I thought that Teixeira was going to retire. So
Yeah, that's what
the fact
everyone
that he even
thought.
has a, I thought that. So the fact that he's even as, I think this is kind of a closer odds than I would have expected to see initially.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. I think you could see this get bet up all the way to minus 250 for Yuri. Everyone loves Yuri. Everyone loves the performances he's put on. His last fight against Dominic Reyes was absolutely amazing, and everyone credits him as the top guy at light heavyweight. So it'll be interesting to see if he can earn that belt. But Glover is always absolutely been an amazing underdog play. It's just like every time out, he puts on a show. So it's going to be
That's true.
interesting. I'm excited for UFC 274. I'm excited for all the title bouts we have coming up, including UFC 271, where you have Adesanya versus Whitaker. I mean, it's just the UFC has things lined up pretty well for the year of 2022 already. All right,
Yep.
go ahead.
No, just speaking of UFC pay-per-views, we are the next Roto Radar After Dark stream that we're doing is the day before the Super Bowl, February 12th, for that Adesanya fight.
Yeah, it's that's gonna be a lot of fun. All right, let's talk about what happened over the weekend because man, NBA was very interesting to say the least. Went over the weekend. On Saturday, we had three games. We had the Bucks facing off against the Kings. Found out that the Kings ruled out the Aaron Fox late. Found out that the Bucks ruled out Giannis. It was a barn burner to say the least. 260 points put up on the board by both of these teams. I'm sure you're happy that your Bucks came away with the win. But what a fun game to watch because both of these teams were scoring at will.
Yeah, I didn't even know this game was happening that night, so that's where we're sitting with
Yeah.
how that went. But yeah, massive score. What was the total there? Like 240, 235?
It was 233, I think, before the game. So clearly went
Okay.
over.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Saw the Cavs and Thunder kind of battling it out. Super low scoring game. Not much to say there. Cavs end up getting a big W. Suns and Pacers, man. This Pacers team sucks. I'm all about fuck the Pacers right now because they just keep sticking around with these teams, making games close. They end up losing 103 to 113. But there is no reason without Malcolm Brogdon that you should be even close to a Suns team right now.
Yeah, Brogdon, Sabonis, Turner, and Levert all not playing, and they
Yeah.
still managed to do things. Keep an eye. I mean, his price tag's probably up there already, but Jeremy Lamb is going to be a guy that's going to be probably an awesome second half play for the rest of the year.
Yeah, definitely. Chris Duarte as well. I mean, he has really been putting on a show for that Pacers team, and if he continues to get his opportunities, I've been about Chris Duarte ever since the beginning of the season. I was all about him. So, really solid rookie there. Let's talk about what happened yesterday. It was a day full of basketball. Not a lot of people watched it because obviously the NFL took over, but you had Jason Tatum dropping a huge game with 50 plus points against their rivals, the Wizards. There was a lot of talk about Tatum and the Celtics team being on a little bit of a cold stretch, but obviously they prove everyone wrong and get a big, big W against the Wizards. We see LeBron's return to Miami. Did not go as planned. This could have gone a lot worse, though. The Lakers were down by 20 points coming into the fourth quarter and
Oh,
stormed back with an amazing comeback. Sadly, not enough. Miami Heat end up winning 113 to 107. Also, NBA season pass members know that I had a big old bet on -4 for Miami Heat. And I was just kind of, can you imagine that? Like putting -4 on the Heat at home against the Lakers? Like I could not understand why that was lined there. So I put a hammer down on -4 and luckily it came through. Uh, Jared, maybe your take is finally coming to fruition, baby. The Bulls lose by over 20 points to the Orlando Magic. Actually, it was 19 points. It was not over 20 points. But this Bulls team clearly hitting some struggles without Lonzo Ball, without Alex Caruso, and without Zach LaVine as well.
yeah. I mean, I didn't say anything about the Bucks Bulls game on Friday night. Incredible game.
Yeah.
Uh, Bulls fans showed out in Milwaukee for that. So I'm hoping that we don't have to do that as a playoff matchup. But yeah, I watched the Grayson Allen flagrant foul breaking Caruso's wrist live. It was not cool to watch.
No, I bet.
um, and so, I mean, like, I'm not going to shit on the Bulls while they're down like this because, frankly, like, uh, it's whatever. They're down three starters and they also are missing a few other key bench players. So, who knows though? The NBA is a game of whoever can stay healthy the longest, and
Yep.
maybe the Bulls just don't have that.
Maybe they don't. We'll have to see. Lots of interesting games happened yesterday as well. We saw the Mavericks get a big win against Grizzlies, kind of realizing who's the top dog there in the top half of the West. We saw the Nets lose to the Timberwolves with Harden and Kyrie on the floor. Really interesting game where we saw over 260 points scored. And then the Warriors very barely get a win against the Jazz. Jazz missed two key free throws and that kind of decides the game. So it was a big slate. It was a interesting slate for sure, and a lot of fun basketball to watch. And we have a 4-game slate today. That should be a good time with Sean and I.
I agree. I saw it's a little bit of a smaller slate today.
Yeah, definitely a smaller slate. Definitely an interesting slate. You see the Bulls come back; they get a face off against the Thunder. You see Pacers and Pelicans facing off against each other. Sun and Jazz get a chance to face off against each other. So lots of interesting games that should be good for DFS. But that is the end of the NBA recap. Let's get into NHL Blind Dogs, and then you can give away your jersey.
All right. NHL Blind Dogs, as usual, haven't looked at a single thing. I don't even know who I picked on Friday at this
Neither do I.
point. So let's see what we got here. we
We need
have.
to write this down, man. We need
I
to
know.
stop. We need to stop not writing it down. I need, or if just someone wants to be responsible for reminding us, someone who's here every day. If you want to be responsible for reminding us who we picked as our dog bets for NHL every day, that would be
All
greatly
right.
helpful.
I'm going to take the St. Louis Blues plus 138 over the Calgary Flames.
Okay. Yeah, there was too many games on Friday to even. Oh, I remember I took the Kraken. They lost 5-0. That was bad. So I know at least I lost my bet. I think that puts me at 4-8. I don't know who you took though. You said you were taking who?
St. Louis Blues.
St. Louis Blues. There you go. Away from home in Calgary. Should be a good one, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Flyers against the Dallas Stars. Plus 144 at home. Should be a good game. All right, Jared, any final thoughts here?
Yeah. Final thoughts. All the prizes for the weekend stream should be coming out today. We'll get in contact with you. I know I've been in touch with some. As far as the Gabe Davis jersey goes, I just tweeted that we're going to give it to Bills fan Chris Mills. So congratulations, Chris. You have won, and I'm sorry that your team lost last night. But hopefully you guys played, whoever played NFL DFS last night, you most likely won a good chunk of change because Gabe Davis was around 20 to 30% in every slate that we played him in.
Yeah, NFL playoffs have been great to us, so hopefully they continue to be great as we head into the NFC Championship. But that is it for the morning after show. Thank you all for hanging out, and again, shout out to our sponsors, BetOnline.ag. Nightbot has a link posted that way, so you can go sign up with them, deposit $50, get a little bit more sprinkled on. It helps us out over here on the stream, and we greatly appreciate it. As always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.